Just a small update on the market, no charts. Basically, looking at the coin market cap, we can see Bitcoin is kind of holding at the $1.6 trillion, like the coin market cap holding at 1.6. Bitcoin volume is around 37 billion. Not bad. We did have a slight dip. And I don't know, a few days ago I showed you some patterns and whatnot as well, and there was a chart I showed, so I've made that chart public just for today, so you can go and have a look. And we had a little zone, and we said this is where we we have a strong support, and we're looking at the temporary trend line. So I mentioned this yesterday. I said we need to have a third point of touch. We have had a third point of touch. Now that I've had the third point of touch, what I've done is I've adjusted the trend line to match this, and with the body of the candle rather than the wick of the candle. So I hope that makes some sense, because it's just a slight different trajectory. It's not much of a variation, so the angle changes slightly, but I like to use the body because that's the closing, right? So we do have a nice little support and a trend line upwards forming as well, so it's good. Also on the market on chain, we can see the Bitcoin is showing how we are now heavily oversold, right? And there's a bit of a divergence forming as well. So on the shorts market, we've got massive shorts, right? Orders just waiting there to monetize on it. Mega shorts opened up. I won't say equal, but close to equal number of long positions as well. But the longs I'm seeing are around the 43k mark and at the 47k mark, right? So that's where all the longs are. So we know we've got a massive potential to do. Everyone's bullish around that time, even me. Everybody's bullish for those figures, right? But not really anything in these price levels, right? All we're seeing is just massively oversold. So let's see what happens. Let's see how it plays out. That's the reason why there's no point showing any charts. Let's close a few days. I think this week is not going to do anything crazy bullish, because that $43,000 mark, there is a significant level of resistance there that we need to break, but nothing goes straight. We are going to test up and down and see where it goes, right? So am I still bullish? Absolutely. Now let's move into a little bit of a funny news, right? So El Salvador, right? So El Salvador, in their country, within their kind of an assembly or whatever they are, right? The ministry or whatever, they have legalized Bitcoin. So for their country, it's legal, right? In their country, they can now legally accept, buy, sell, do whatever with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is a currency for them, right? It's absolutely fine. But they have had a little bit of a backlash with the IMF, number one, International Monetary Fund, which is a separate branch of the World Bank. And they've also had a bit of an issue with World Bank. So World Bank has, whatever happened, has rejected to accept it as the... so they've just basically said, no, we don't accept it. So El Salvador is a country of its own, and some global bank, right, which is based in America, says we don't accept it. Right, that's it. You cannot have this. So it just shows you the power, right? It's just ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. You can't have a currency of your choice. You can only have what we approve you. Seriously. Anyway, so that's the situation basically. So you got El Salvador having this thing, and I've mentioned this as well. I said, look, El Salvador accepting cryptocurrency, legalizing it, adopting it wasn't the problem, right? It doesn't matter. They've only put 150 million. There's nothing, right? But the problem is that they are now trying to legalize it. And the thing is if the global, the world, let's just say, the World Bank is the world, right? If they agree, and they have to, right? At some point they have to. If they agree, then you might as well say every single currency in the planet is rendered useless, right? The reason is because that gives legitimacy to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency as well at some point later, probably, right? Obviously they have to be officiated, right? But it gives legitimacy. And what will happen is every country in the world will have to accept Bitcoin as a form of money, which means, say for example, you're traveling from one country to another, and that country's currency is their own official currency, whatever it is, and someone goes there and says, well, I'm going to the foreign exchange and I need you to convert, like, you know, the way we do, like, so when I go to a country, I usually take my pounds and I'll say, right, can you convert this into this currency, please? And they'll do that, unless I've got on the debit card or credit card. That's a different story. So I'll go there and I'll say, can you convert this and give me some of your currency? They have to accept Bitcoin. They have to accept Bitcoin. So this is where the problem is. As I've said before as well, I said, look, this is only a temporary glitch in the system, right? It's coming, it will be accepted at some point. But I think what it is it's going to take at least a decade for it. And just to kind of reiterate on that, say like, okay, why is it going to take a decade? Well, the adoption, right? Adoption is key. You see, any money that we transfer or exchange is accepted via the banks. So I think a lot of the banks globally will have to create infrastructure. So they don't have that. Remember, the banking system is Stone Age. The banking system is Stone Age. Banking system is Stone Age, right? So they got to build an infrastructure to facilitate. So that means a lot more expense, XYZ, whatever. And potentially, I mean, if they go into a crypto path, right? If they go down that rabbit hole, half of the people that you know, you see who are like, you know, in the banking, right? Banking said that the employees and will probably end up losing their jobs. You don't need people sitting there and controlling a decentralized protocol. You know, once initiated, you can basically go ahead and do whatever you want, whenever you want, at will. Current banking structure, Monday to Friday. Okay, you know, up to 5 p.m. After 5 p.m, you're screwed. You can't bank anymore, right? Obviously, there's some form of digitalization where you can do online banking and whatnot. But even then, they still don't have the proper structure in place where they do settlement. So whenever you see I'm doing a transaction, so I'm sending money one person to another, digitally, of course, it's showing up. But bank to bank, trust me, in the back end, they still got to do a manual settlement, right? So this is where other companies and organizations, like in the UK, we have like, other places as well, same, they're known as clearing houses. So what they do, they take the transaction on board and they clear it instantly, but they'll settle it later, right? So the funds are cleared, but the settlement's done later. So it's a lot more complex technology. So this is what it is, right? And so this is the problem. So, but it's going to come. I think it's going to come because you see a lot of institutions are definitely buying it. A lot of financial institutions right now are in a massive dilemma. They need to figure out a digital way of dealing with the problem, and it's coming. Trust me, it's coming. I mean, CBDC, central bank digital dollars or whatever currency, is a form of this, right? But because it's still centralized, it will still have some sort of a Stone Age method to it, right? You know, a rubber stamp to it, right? This is the problem. You know, once you get out of that rubber stamp situation where a man has to stamp it and approve it, and just leave it to the protocol, then I think it's a whole different thing, right? So it's going to take time. It's going to take time. We are seeing, I talked about Taproot the other day as well, we are seeing a lot of innovation coming into the space, especially with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin had one functionality that was missing for a very long time. However, the technology does exist. So for example, Lightning Network existed for some time. We've had it since 2017, I believe, or yeah, I think 2017 or 2018 we've had it. Just took a long time for it to be adopted. It does work, and I think it's going to be a lot more bigger if the institutions want to come on board. It's definitely going to be bigger. Also talking about smart contracts, already existed. We've had smart contracts, technically smart contracts using a secondary layer, right? I'm not going to even mention the coin, but there's a secondary layer protocol that allowed you to build smart contracts already since 2018, right? But it was never part of the main system. That's what's going on. It was never part of the main system. So what's happening now with the Taproot upgrade is all of those secondary layers are going to be built into the system. So you know, it just unifies everything, and now it's part of the main system. We don't need a secondary layer doing these kind of things. So whereas in, you know, we had the main chain and we had a side chain, like for example, that's how Lightning Network worked, right? It settled payments instantly on a side chain, bundled it up together like a batch, and then sent it off to the main network to be confirmed, right? That's what it did, literally. Now at least we're going to have it directly on chain. Makes things much better, right? So this is what happened. This is the evolution, right? The evolution is fees are going to be more cheaper, the transaction speeds are going to be more faster, and all of this relates back to adoption. Adoption is going to go mental, right? Adoption is going to go mental. So let me just let this ambulance go. There we are. So yeah, so this is what's going to happen. Adoption is going to be a lot more faster, and we were talking about it with someone recently, where we talked about how, you know, Bitcoin adoption right now globally, like over 100 million people, or we're not even, it's more than that by the way, but we're just counting the main accounts, the active accounts, right? We're saying more than 100 million accounts, right, are using it, right? So, you know, almost close to like 2% of the planet is using Bitcoin, right, in some form or a manner. And it's growing rapidly, it's growing. So what happens when it goes from 2% to 3%, 3% to 5%, 5% to 10%, for example? Because you know the growth curve, so it's to do with Moore's law, for example. Moore's law, the technology increases rapidly over XYZ amount of time, like every 18 months, right? Very similar, if you use the same law, but on adoption, right? It's the same thing. So for example, when banks started issuing checks, most people said, well, they didn't trust checks. It took a long time, but eventually when the growth eventually went to the peak, it was like the adoption was doubling every year, right? So you see massive adoption to a point until debit cards came out, or credit cards, right? And then the same adoption happened where people didn't accept it, people didn't understand it, but eventually it got to the point where now, look at us, right? Where, you know, we've moved to a third phase. Third phase is currently contactless and this and that. Back in the days, people didn't trust it, infrastructure wasn't there, and most people still like chip and pin. And now we're in a point where we don't even need a chip and pin, right? You know, limits are increasing, everything's increasing, and we can do contactless. I mean, especially with mobile payments, right? This is what kind of opened paved the way, because with mobile payments on a device, it's contactless, but the limits are far more higher. So the technology is there, it's just a matter of adoption, and more people are now, I've seen as well, are just leaving their cards, credit cards, debit cards, leaving it at home and just use a mobile app. I mean, for me, I just use my watch. It's got an NFC built into it, it has my card in there, and I just tap it, boom, I'm done. So, you know, adoption is coming, obviously. This is what it is. So what I'm saying is that first it takes a long time, and eventually when it starts moving, it becomes very rapid, right? So it's not just, Moore's law just doesn't apply on certain things. You can actually use it on many other things. The law is the same pretty much, right? Adoption, once it comes to its peak, it explodes, right? So it's going to take time, but it's definitely coming there. That's all I want to say. It's definitely coming there, all right? Matic. I want to talk about Matic. So Matic was one of those coins that I had my doubts. Even now I still do, because they are building certain things, and you know, on their website they're blatantly putting a disclaimer saying we're not finished. And Matic is a layer 2 protocol on top of Ethereum. It's gaining traction, right? It's gaining traction. I mean, from where it was to where it is now, it's a whole different ballgame. So for me, you know, in the beginning, I've always said, so currently people were using Matic for the fees, how cheap it was to run. But at some point, when Ethereum releases its EIP 1559 and other upgrades to the protocol, right, and makes the fees even cheaper, Matic could be rendered dormant. That's what I've said before, right? You know, you know, this is my word and I admit to it, right? This is what I've said. But I'm about to change my mind a little bit. I feel right now, Matic, because of all the situations, has established itself. And recently, Matic launching its own platform, and it's an exchange, and you know, you can build on Matic now as well. Changes things a little bit. And Matic currently is like almost near to nothing. The fees are near to nothing. And I think the EIP 1559 will also change that, probably make it to absolutely nothing, right? So definitely has potential. But I want to say something else as well here. This is a bigger picture. You know, all of these 10,000 coins, we know that majority of them are not blockchains, and majority of them are running side chains. So they're blockchains on top of a blockchain, right? But what we do know, one thing as a fact, the majority of them are built on Ethereum. Now, this is funny. Listen to this, right? This is funny. You can invest money into a project and speculate on the project and make money on the project, of course. Or you can invest money in Ethereum and still benefit from all the other shitcoins there are. Now, let's explain why. See, all the projects use Ethereum. That's a fact. They're all built on Ethereum. They use Ethereum. So the more usage they have, the more Ethereum pumps. Does that make any sense, right? So Ethereum, you don't really need holders of, you don't need to be holding a project to benefit from Ethereum. You can actually hold the Ethereum and still benefit from it. Now, the reason we had this conversation was, you know, someone was talking about how to build a project on Matic and this and that and everything. And, you know, how Cardano, like we talk about Cardano, how Cardano might explode. It might be an Ethereum killer. How Polkadot might be an Ethereum killer. True, they can all be. But one thing that you have to realize is Ethereum has the market share. Ethereum has the most amount of tokens in this planet on it right now. So for that market to filter over to Cardano or Polkadot, it's going to take a while. I mean, people might run side chains and might run cross-chain protocols, right, to utilize both of them so they're user-friendly, but they don't necessarily have to just adopt one and not the other. Obviously, people are going to stick around with the biggest one, right? You stick around with the biggest protocol. But what I'm feeling is some of these later on proposals that Ethereum's going to be doing are going to make Ethereum competing. So right now, Ethereum, I don't think is competing with Cardano or Polkadot. It's the opposite, right? They're competing with Ethereum to take the market share. So remember, technology-wise, they may be more superior, but market share-wise, Ethereum's the king. But what's going to happen is Ethereum will start competing with these other protocols once it can stabilize its fees and its structure of how it works right now. And I think it's coming sometime. The reason I'm saying this, right? The reason I'm saying this is because now you have Bitcoin with smart contract functionality in November. Once everything's confirmed in November, and it's confirmed already, it's coming in November, right? So in November, Bitcoin launches its smart contract functions. Well, guess where everybody wants to be? They want to be on Bitcoin. They don't want to be on Ethereum. They don't want to be on Polkadot, Cardano. Maybe they do, but we have people who want to be on the best one, Bitcoin. That is what Ethereum will face a challenge with. So Ethereum has to compete. You understand what I mean now? So in short, right? Bitcoin smart contract will attract a lot of developers. People will start building on that, using the Bitcoin's supremacy, right? You know, it's the king of the crypto, right? That's what people would want to plug their monetary system into, or their protocols or tokens or whatever, right? Obviously, it's going to take a long time. I would say it would definitely take, after November, it would definitely take another 4 or 5 years for Bitcoin to establish itself as a superior smart contract, because there'll be bugs and all sorts, right? So we're going to get over those. It will take a few years, but that time is when Ethereum will kind of shine a little bit, right? And I think Ethereum's going to do a lot of upgrades based on that as well. And there was another funny fact. So I just read the headline, so I don't know the full story. I'll be honest with you. I kind of, you know, sometimes I get notifications, so I just read the headline. And one of the headline was, Michael Saylor has changed his mind regarding Ethereum. So remember, he's a Bitcoin bull. He's a Bitcoin bull, right? he said everything else is a shitcoin apart from Bitcoin, just like myself, right? And he's never invested anything in Ethereum. Well, now he's actually considering plugging some money into Ethereum too. Do you know why? Because he also sees some things. He sees innovation. He sees that, okay, if Bitcoin does what Bitcoin is planning to do, and it's definitely going to do it, Ethereum faces a challenge. Because right now Ethereum had no challenge, no competition. Even Cardano, Polkadot, Avalanche, many cross chains and this and that, Ethereum killers, right? None of them were competition for Ethereum. Nobody was, because it was built so good and everything. So it knows it's still the king of smart contracts, and it has the biggest dominance in that, right? Others will take some market share, but not all. And most projects that do use the other protocols will always have a open protocol so they can communicate with other smart chains as well. Because that's where we're going. We're going to a level where protocols can communicate with each other cross-chain, right? That's where we're going. Because you don't need to have, multiple 1,000 different blockchains, or one dominant blockchain and nothing else, right? You can have 1,000 blockchains but communicate in one language, right? So one single language. So we have like all the blockchains that have one blockchain to communicate with, and we can cross exchange like currencies and whatnot similar, right? So like atomic swap, and that's what kind of kicked it all off, right? So the atomic swap was what kicked it off, where you can actually take one protocol, convert it into another thing instantly. So that's what's going to happen. And a lot of people are going to move over to Bitcoin. Bitcoin will have a lot of development going on. It's a project I would love to do. So unfortunately, I don't know any good Bitcoin smart contract developers yet, but it's something I would definitely love to test out, just for a joke. I want to test it out, right? But Ethereum is going to feel the heat, and definitely is going to upgrade the protocol to compete with Bitcoin, to stay as the king of smart contracts. That's all I'm going to say, king of smart contracts, right? So let's see what happens. It's going to be very interesting, and I'm going to follow the market and see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, just a little small update, guys. I know it's not small usually, it's about 22 minutes, but thank you very much if you stuck around to this time. Look, my name is Sham. I just talk about stuff. I make videos where it looks like predictions, and technically it is, but I don't like to call it predictions. I don't want to say the word exactly as predicted, but look, we play on patterns. We understand what the chart is telling us. That's what we try and do. We decipher what the chart is telling us, we decipher what the market is telling us, and we put them two together, and then we can usually say, okay, this is what the market will be doing, or this is what the market will not be doing, and just leave it like that. And we advise, like I personally, so there's no financial advice here, but I do advise people to be smart about how to invest their money and whatnot, and just don't go crazy. Leverage trading is very dangerous, so please do understand. If anybody's buying Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, or anything, always be prepared to be in it for at least 5 years, and especially Bitcoin, right? And even some of the top 10, maybe even the top 20. But remember, most shit coins, actually today a brother mentioned something, if there was a coin, I forgot what it was called, but they just did a rug pull. So there are coins that will come out and entice you, do the marketing, whatnot, and then they will do a rug pull, right? So you got to be very careful. And I've said this as well. I said, look, Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency. Everything else that came after it just wants your Bitcoin or your other cryptos, right? So every layer is the same thing. Everyone wants something else, right? So anything that came out on Ethereum, they want your Ethereum. Anything that's accepting Bitcoin, they want your Bitcoin, right? Very simple, right? So that's a mega scam in my opinion. And I said this as well. I said, even if I build a cryptocurrency, right, I still stand by my statement. Everything's a shitcoin, everything's a scam coin, right? Maybe the project is legit, Cardano, I believe in it, I trust it, right? But again, I call it a shitcoin. Why? Because it is a shitcoin, full stop, right? It's not a crypto. It's sorry, it is a crypto, but it's not Bitcoin, right? That's what I'm trying to say. You got number one. Why do you want to go and look for number two, number three? Of course, you're going to make money on it. That's a different story. You support the project. That's a different story. So I do have my faith in these projects, right? But I still call them a shitcoin. Simple as that, right? They're all a scam coin, right? Until they prove they're not, right? So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Other than that, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you on another one. 24 bloody minutes. See you later, guys. Take care.